Well, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to start the meeting. This is the June 17th meeting of the Simsbury Zoning Commission. And the first order of business is just to check the attendance. And we have, all 6 of our commissioners are here. Jackie Betos is not with us tonight. But we don't need to appoint alternates. We're ready to do business. The next item of business is the minutes of the meeting. Review of the minutes of the meeting from June 3rd. And I'll just start with a comment that I've read the minutes, and I don't have any additions or corrections to add myself, but I open the floor to other commissioners. Does anybody else have?
Yeah, I had one question for George. On line 52, it looks like there's an extra word in there. I'm not sure if that's.
I don't have.
Oh, yeah.
It
Line
says
50 what?
4-2.
Here.
Yeah, I would say strike 4.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was
Yeah.
the way the motion was
Yeah.
drafted.
Yeah, I would strike 4.
Any other comments, concerns, questions? Hearing none, I'd like a motion to approve as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve the minutes from the June 3rd, 2024 meeting as amended.
I will second that.
So the motion is made by Tony and the second is Diane. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. So the motion is approved 6-0. Moving right along here, our next item of business tonight is a site plan application. And it has to do with the International Skating Center, as the material was clear on. George, do you want to offer an introduction before we give the
Sure.
floor to the applicant?
Sure. Obviously, the applicant is here with a robust team to address the application. But yeah, this is a site plan amendment for an expansion at the International Skating Center of Connecticut. It is a 25,000 square foot addition, and as the applicant will tell you, it includes some mezzanine area. I think the current facility with the 2 rinks, I think it's about 78,000 square feet. So this is a good addition, a needed addition, as they'll tell you. It is a use that, of course, is permitted by right in the I-1 zoning district. And so this is a site plan amendment that is for your review and approval. We don't notice adjoining property owners. There's no public hearing involved, unless you call for it. But typically, it is. This is a good old-fashioned expansion. We have provided all of the documentation and the application to town referral agents. Now, I would note this is an economic development project, and the applicant asked us to expedite our review, and so we did turn it around fairly quickly, really within a week or so, which is kind of extraordinary for town staff. But town engineering, fire department, police, planning staff, all were able to generate at least the verbal notes, and there are no outstanding issues. And we believe that we've worked with the applicant to resolve the issue. We are recommending a number of conditions that we can talk about perhaps after the applicant's presentation. So I think with that, I'd let Mr. Doyle have the floor.
How about as long as you have the floor, a note on DRB?
Oh, I'm sorry. That is actually, I wrote it down as number 5 of my notes. Yeah. So the application did proceed to DRB this evening, and your design review board forwards it to you with a recommendation, a positive referral based upon the applicant's submission.
Okay, thank you. And so we're ready to move ahead with the application, and there's enough people here representing the application. Sure.
Andy Glassman, I represent the applicants, and for once, my hope is that, not for once, my hope is that there's very little here tonight, and you guys get to hear about the project. project. So I want to say hello, and I want to thank you for having this meeting. What is going to be one of the last beautiful nights for a little while, so we'll make this very, very quick. I know that Adam and Kelly are excited to talk about the project. It's a great opportunity for the town, a great expansion, a really neat project, and something that hopefully the community gets behind. So I'm just going to turn the floor over to Kelly first, or
We'll be able
Adam.
to.
So come on up, they just want to tell you about the project.
We'll expedite the process so
Yes.
it doesn't take forever.
Exactly.
We do have a self-esteem.
My name's Kelly Beckinsale. I'm one of the owners and the general manager of the facility. And after design review, George gave us great feedback that it'd be a good idea for us to just kind of talk about what we've been doing for the past couple of years and what's warranted the need for us coming to you for this expansion. So a lot of you might know that this is the 30th anniversary of the International Skating Center. So it was built 30 years ago. We took over 2 years ago. And have had a lot of work that we've been doing over the past couple of years. A lot of aesthetic improvements were deeply required. What was once the crown jewel of this town became very dilapidated and really just a big box in the back of the back of a field, and you only went in there if you skated. So our first objective was to really bring the rink back to the town and make it a place for people to go. So we tried to introduce some things to get people in there, even if you weren't a skater. Our food and beverage facility was upgraded, the facility itself was upgraded, but we also made some partnerships with some real key people to try and get people in. So starting with the figure skating community, we partnered with Scott Hamilton and his Cancer Research Foundation. So for the past 2 years, we've done a figure skating show to bring people in. We've now also built a skating club, which will afford us the opportunity to bring in figure skating competitions. Again, something that the community would receive very well. And our Learn to Skate program. All of these events that bring people in, it shows the kids what skating can be. When we inherited the Learn to Skate program 2 years ago, there was one session offered at 6-week increments only over the winter season. And the Learn to Skate program saw about 60 registrants in that course of the 3 months that they offered the one class. We're really excited to announce that last year, the U.S. Figure Skating Association awarded us the largest Learn to Skate program in the state of Connecticut. We now offer multiple programs on multiple days of the week throughout the entire 12-month season. From youth to adult, we've seen a big growth in adult Learn to Skate, and we registered over 600 people in 2023 alone. So in 2 years, that growth has been significant. On the hockey side of things, just the simple aesthetic improvements that we made have increased our customer base, and our existing customers want to skate there more. It's a nicer place to go, it's cleaner, and there's amenities that are afforded to them. We've also started a fitness center, which has been a huge hit. We've got a lot of people who never put skates on in their life, but they come and work out and they get to watch figure skating while they're on the treadmill and what have you. So we've seen great success there. When we turn to the hockey side of things, that's where it kind of gets us into the need for this addition. And one baseline that I think is important is when you learn how to play hockey, USA Hockey has what's called an ADM development model, which ultimately requires anybody under the age of 9 who's learning how to play hockey to skate on a smaller rink. They will not allow them to skate on a full surface. The philosophy behind that is that, they're little guys. They can't do the whole surface, and when you only have 10 kids out there, it's a big wide open space. So when you condense that space, it affords them the opportunity to touch the puck more, move with it more, and ultimately develop at a higher level of pace. These additional rinks, these training rinks, a lot of people will say, well, why do you need a mini one if you're growing so big? We would love to have a third rink, and that might be a conversation we'll have with you in a couple of years, but our existing place is that we feel in order to grow the game, in order to maximize the ice and give the ice that our current customer base needs, these mini rinks allow the training side of things to move over into these other 2 spaces. It also creates an athletic training facility to separate the athletes from the fitness center members. you know, the mom who's on a treadmill doesn't necessarily want all these meathead hockey players bouncing, smelly hockey players bouncing, you know, their weights around. So it creates just a better flow and a better use of our space, but more importantly, allows the opportunity for what is now a very successful public skate program. We can have parties over there, we can have development over there, and some more community events on what is a more, an easier place to skate on the smaller side and open up those bigger sheets for the customer base that we're growing.
Yeah, I don't want to add anything to that, because I think you hit every header that we're looking for, so, but it is a great, exciting time, and if you guys do have a chance and you ever come in and you walk into that facility, it puts a smile on your face to see these kids running around, and see them happy, so it's a lot of positive feedback after a long day's work with people, you know, in your regular job, you go and you see happy people, it's a good thing, so, we'll turn it over to
Great.
Phil and let
Thank
the
you.
rest of the guys.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Phil Doyle from LADA here in Simsbury. We're land planners over on West Street. We put together a number of the site plans. And I'll lead you through that, and whoever's going to push the button, whether it's George or Rick.
I'm in the seat.
Where we are, thank you. 1375 is a I-zone piece of property. It's a rear lot, sits behind now what is the big Y, I think, when this the year photo was taken. It was I think it was probably just under construction, but we abut on the south, the Cambridge Crossing. The north is really undeveloped land owned by whoever the last subsidiary or of Culver, and then you've got the supermarket over on our right to the east, and we've got a boulevard driveway that comes in from Route 10. So can we go to the next slide? I can also mention, I'm sure you already know this from looking at the application, the land is owned by the town of Simsbury. And the BMW, which is Kelly and Adam, they own the building. They have contract the lease with the long-term lease with the town. That lease anticipates additions and changes and things like this. So the application is signed by both the town manager and by either Kelly or Adam. This is a view of the front of the property. The survey. We would show that most of the development is towards the eastern part of the site. It's been that way for 30 years. North is to the top of that sheet, and I think for most of the drawings, the orientation will be the same. East is to my right, and west is to the left, south is to the bottom of the sheet. The site has about 420 parking spaces. There's about 78,000 square feet of space. That includes mezzanine space where there are meeting rooms and the like on the second floor. And we currently are operating under an OSTA permit back in 1994, because when you build more than 200 parking spaces and you have more than 100,000 square feet, the building number didn't trigger it, but the parking spaces did. The operators at that point obtained a permit from the State Department of Transportation. At that point, it was called an STC permit. So we have a state traffic permit, and STC transitioned into OSTA. And once we're finished with the municipal approvals, Scott Hesketh is here. He can answer any questions you might have on traffic generation. But we'll be going back to the DOT to modify the OSTA permit. That's just kind of part of the process. Move on. This is the enlarged view of the site survey. The site's about 35% impervious surface existing. The I-zone limit is 40%. Will be staying underneath that number. Say at one point, after 1994, there was a site plan amendment filed, and that site plan amendment was never built. It pushed the parking spaces further back towards the west, up the hill. At some point, they must have thought that they needed additional parking, and that site plan approval granted by this commission was for about 39.5% impervious surface, the same number that we have on our site plans at this point. Let's go to the next, George. This is just an area context. You'll see that the existing building is here, and we're adding this addition. We're not expanding the parking. It's currently a row of parking, double row of parking right in here. When they, my subs, I would say, yes, is that when this was built 30 years ago, it was the first of its kind facility trying to cater to international skaters. Remember, it was Oksana Mayul and her trainers were coming here. And it was a different point in time. This was designed for what was anticipated to be a parking need, given what they are coming out of the Olympics. And we've all seen over time, the parking lots have, for the most part, been very much empty. Under our current zoning, under the I-1 zone, this is commercial recreation use. Commercial recreation parking is generated by taking a look at the number of square feet, both mezzanine and ground floor level parking. Divide that by 500 square feet and then multiply that by 0.75, and you end up with a parking need here for this type of use, which is about 156 parking spaces. We get 420, and the parking spaces are more fully used if, as Adam has explained to me, if there's a high school game between Simsbury and Glastonbury. That's going to drive the big numbers. But for the most part, the parking lots are not heavily used. So that gives us some flexibility in looking at development options. And I know at one point earlier in the year, we sat with George and with the town manager. We were talking about a master plan that was really looking at pushing out on both sides of the building. And it might be that Kelly said we might be back to you in the future. We may be back to you in the future for another addition on this side of the building. But first things first, we've got to get we've got to get the facility cleaned up. That's what Kelly and Adam have been working on for the last couple of years. And because of the growth in children's sports, to put in these 2 half-size rinks so that, as Adam explained to me, 6-year-olds don't have to skate for 200 feet. They can skate for 60 feet. It's a scale. It's a scale issue. And let's go on to the next. We'd be adding 25,000 square feet of space, 25,170, 2 half-size rinks. We'll be reducing the parking count from 420 to 367. We have with us our engineer who can answer any stormwater questions. But the site is already serviced by water and sewer. The water and sewer lines come into the building. We're not proposing at this point any exterior changes to water or sewer services. The stormwater is entirely, it's interesting. In 1994, the designers were probably 25 years or so ahead of themselves in terms of stormwater mitigation. Because at that point in time, most stormwater was handled only through detention. And there was a detention basin. George, could you go on to the next slide? Let's see what we have. Yes. There's a detention basin here. It's now part of the Big Y site. The town transferred that to Big Y when that development, or preceding that development occurrence. That piece of land out here was once part of this site. and stormwater was detained in a basin constructed by the facility in 1994. But in terms of roof water, the developers of the property put in an underground infiltration system here and an underground infiltration system right there. And they infiltrated all of the stormwater. It's all sand, very wonderful sand up there. But they were 20, 25 years ahead of themselves. It was only maybe 10 years ago or so that the DEEP changed the stormwater regulations and said we want to encourage infiltration. So we have that advantage. And in this situation, we will be taking the new roof water that we are adding on this side of the site, and we will be moving the infiltrators and adding to those infiltrators and putting in more stormwater infiltration in that area. And so that the entire roof water area is infiltrated, which is wonderful, and doesn't add to the stormwater load downstream. Our proposal here would be to take up that pavement. That pavement currently goes into catch basins, and all of the pavement is eventually directed down into the stormwater basin. So by taking that parking lot out there, turned it into roof water, we're actually increasing the amount of water that's going into the ground. We'll be rebuilding this parking lot in here to allow the infiltrators to be installed. Topographically, the water is all flowing down the hill towards the building. There's a series of catch basins in here. And we're not going to be changing the grade in those parking lots. We'll be building that retaining wall of the building into the grade by about 8 feet. So the building is going to appear diminished along that western wall. This is the western side of the building. And as you're all aware, Cambridge Crossing was built as a workforce housing overlay in this area. And they're our closest neighbors. We've got the building set about 42 feet back from the property line, and the building setback is 40. The parking and driveway setback is 15, and we're holding that 15 line. When Cambridge was built, they put some trees, some white pines in this area, just on their property line. Our proposal in terms of grading, is to create a berm in this area and then add more white pine on our side of the property line, and also install, at George's suggestion, a 380-foot long this entire buffer, 380-foot long screen fence, 6 foot tall, with the white vinyl, so it looks like wood, and will be attractive for the neighbors. And then along this section in here, because we have less room to work with, we'd be putting in a thick row of dark, they're called dark green American or dark American arborvitae that'll grow into a hedge about 20 feet tall. So we'll provide a buffer that really doesn't exist today. In this area, what seems to have happened, particularly with that homeowner, they took the pine trees that I think it was, they call it something, forget the name of the developer, but the developer for Cambridge Crossing, but they put in pine trees, but the people cut all the pine trees and turned them into lollipops and removed all the screening. So we'll put the screening back, and we'll replace the trees that are in the parking lots, add some ornamental grasses in the parking lot areas, pick up the sidewalks, picking up people coming in from the parking lots here, extending the sidewalk out here, bringing everybody to the front door. The back of the building, there's a service door in here so that you can get if you have to get in to get the Zamboni out or something like that, get equipment in or out, that will happen. And then we're replacing lights on the property. We have a couple of light fixtures in different places on the property. We're replacing those. Those will all be LED down lights, about 16 feet tall, mounting height to match the mounting height of the lights. And
Could I ask you a question before you go on to the lighting? On the issue of the Cambridge Crossing homes, do you have the distance from the nearest home to your property?
the nearest home,
The setback.
this property is vacant, still owned by the developer. This piece of property has a house sitting right there, and that house is about 25, the back of the house is about 25 feet from the property line. And Cambridge is a workforce housing use. Remember, it's an overlay in an I zone. So it's a unique kind of situation. And,
Well, what I'm curious about is how much does a 6-foot fence do for a 2-story house? And the backs are right up, that's that
those
close.
backs of houses are 2 stories.
Right.
Yes. And like the arborvitae, those will grow to anywhere between 20 and 40 feet tall. The white
Mhm.
pine, will.
Okay. So it's a matter of time. In time, those things will grow,
time,
and there will be some screening that's not there now. Right, okay.
You want to flip through a
The
few
scale
more
of the building isn't really changing that much that they see now. It's getting a little closer to them.
Well, from having read the material, there's more going on back there that will be improvement.
But the intent is to offer in a few years, to offer a complete buffer so that they're separated from us. And there is no buffer.
They can walk over there if they
I
want.
know it's been recorded too. But it'll work its way through.
Yeah.
On the right, on this particular plan, we're demonstrating that a Simsbury fire truck can circulate through the site.
Which truck is that? Is that the big one? That's the 100-foot ladder on it?
This one is one of the standard, normal trucks, regular ladder truck.
Okay.
So, question, the parking towards the bottom, is that customer parking?
No, that's employee.
That's employee parking, okay.
Yeah,
And-
all of the customer parking runs around the building, both sides of the building, in the back of the building. This is just really staff.
Okay, and there's not gonna be a separate entrance for the new addition?
There are a couple of separate, there's like a fire access here,
Mhm.
and there's a couple of separate access points into the back of the building.
But customers going to the new addition are gonna be
No,
going
customers, everybody has to go in
through the
front.
main entrance, okay, thank you,
There's no customer access in the back.
okay.
One more question. I was a little confused, where your existing building is gonna have an addition on the west side. I can see that. Currently, on the west side of the existing building, the roof water's coming down leaders and into a system
Correct.
underground somewhere. Is that gonna be changed?
All of that gets changed.
Maybe you could comment on it. Change how?
Yeah, what happens is they put in 7 roof leaders coming down in through here. And those roof leaders get piped. This faint line right through there,
Mhm.
that's the underground galley system. Those roof leaders get pumped into manholes that are in the lawn and then into the galley system. All that's gonna be ripped up. And you see that blue area here? All the alleys are being relocated out into the parking lot. And that roof, and Chris can explain this, Chris Millard from Phase Zero, the ridge line is here. All of that roof water is gonna continue down, and get picked up here in a new series of leaders that'll get tied into that galley system. And so all the water goes underground, and the interesting thing is, think about how tall that side of the building is now. It's probably 18, 20 feet tall. 23? I stand corrected, 23. But with the roof coming down across the width of the building, which is about 95 feet, that drops the the edge, the height of that side of the building to about 14 or 15 or so feet tall, diminishes the whole height of the building. And the rink itself, there's only one floor elevation for the rink, which is 196. That comes all the way through the building. So the building is built into the hillside. So from neighbors' point of view, or even from people in the parking lot, the height of the building is going to appear very small. It's going to be built into the hillside, and which I think is appropriate when you're up against a neighborhood.
I'm curious, I know you say you're not adding any additional parking here and you're gonna be taking some of those spots away. I've definitely parked in that area in the past, and although it may not be used a lot, it's fairly desolate. Like, are you guys gonna be adding lighting and kind of improving the remaining spots that are back there? Okay.
Yeah, if you can see on the plan here, we're gonna be adding lights here, 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 here. We're adding lights. I haven't gone up there and done a foot candle study. That wasn't really part of the task in looking at the existing lighting. But the existing lighting is a hodgepodge, and it's getting, Kelly and Adam are slowly going, they've only had the facility for 2 years. They're starting to go through and take down some of those old lights as they fail, and they're replacing them with LEDs. Because those are old shoebox lights. They sort of look like the lights that are out in the parking lot here. They're like mercury vapor, and they're deteriorating. So those have to get replaced over time. We are now adding all LEDs into this area, and that LEDs, those match the new LEDs that they've put up. So this will be a much better illumination. One of the questions, for example, the staff asked us to make sure that when we do the lighting plan, we don't have any lights spill over into the neighborhood.
That's exactly, it's like, on the one hand, I think that side lot needs to be lighted because it's, if you're
Yes.
gonna be utilizing it, but on the other hand, you're right, I don't want it to be such that it's gonna be more offensive to the neighbors,
It's
so.
a balance.
Okay.
And, but the good thing is, with the LED lights, and George, could flip, if we can do this and go forward into the lighting plan?
You can, we can get to it.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up your flow. You go ahead. We can come back to it.
Yeah, this is, just to give you, we took a picture out here in the parking lot. The building is fitting into the parking lot, and think about it, the building floor elevation in the existing building is down here. So the building is gonna be, the ground floor is buried, and then the building will extend up. You can imagine here what happens. I'm standing in the driveway, the big curved driveway that comes in. So we're gonna be taking and moving that driveway right straight past that oak tree and then down through. So we're gonna be slightly changing the alignment of the driveway as it runs around the building. And those were the basic stats. This is the area, these are the areas we'll be demolishing, tearing up paving, removing trees to accomplish the task. And our grading plan shows what we're talking about. Let's go on to the next one, I think, is the lighting. This was the planting, I've explained that. With the lighting plan, these are all the grids. We've done the lighting diagram in two separate ways. We've done it with the Isolux contours, where you get these computer files from the manufacturers, and if you put them in the computer, you can generate the half-foot candle, 1/10 of a foot candle, 1-foot candle, all the different levels. But then you can also do a grid system, and to demonstrate that you don't have any light spill at the property lines, given the height of the light. And we've done that, but you can see all of these light in the parking lots now, all of these lights start to intersect. And you want to maintain, if you can, in a parking lot like this, at least a foot candle of light, so when people are walking around, they're not tripping. And it used to be that when this was done, back in 1994, the standard was 1/10 of a foot candle in a parking lot. That's why you're seeing, you think it might be a little dark. The 1/10 used to be the standard. And over time, we, for example, had the situation over in Glastonbury. We did that big, for Hartford Hospital, that huge complex of medical buildings up off Hebron Avenue. And the nurses were coming out at night, and we had been designed to be dark sky compliant, 1/10 of a foot candle at the intersections, and the nurses said, no, we don't want to go to our cars because it's too dark. And we worked with a number of lighting manufacturers, and they've said that we have to, for parking lots like this, we have to maintain at a low level, at the lowest spot, at least a foot candle. So that's what this is based on.
I missed, who gave you that direction? To
We
increase.
ended up working with lighting manufacturers after we were told by the zoning commission in Glastonbury we had to raise the level because none of the nurses wanted to go out into the parking lot at night. So you learn from experience.
Thank you.
Erosion control, we have 2 tracking pads, one on each side of the construction area, here and here. We'll have silt sacks in all the catch basins, erosion controls around the perimeter. We're going to have a construction fence to keep kids, people from wandering into the construction area. George had suggested we do a construction fence along this edge that had a fabric in it. And since we're going to be putting up a screen fence, our suggestion would be we'll put the screen fence in along with the erosion controls so that the neighborhood is protected from the get-go. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris to talk about the architecture right now.
Excuse me, can I ask a question before you disappear? I just want to go back to traffic for a minute.
Well, I'll bring Scott back. Scott Hesketh is here. I can have Scott.
Okay, that's fine. No, we could keep going.
We're not going to hide.
Okay, no.
Hello, my name is Chris from Bay Zero Design. We're an architecture firm here in Simsbury, Connecticut. I've been asked by Adam and Kelly to help them out with looking at this building, coming up with a design, and ultimately developing some construction documents to build this addition. When we first started, we looked at the exterior facade of this building. We know that it's been constructed over 30 years ago. We looked at the materials, we looked at what's out there so we can understand how we want to marry this addition with the existing building. We're looking at keeping a simple shape, trying to blend in, trying to continue those materials that are on there onto our addition. Then also, as you'll see when we get to some elevations, we try to add a little bit of color too, so it's not a massive facade, a massive blank facade on the addition space. So as you can see here, basically the front of the building has a little bit of architecture to it, as I'm calling it, which is some storefront and awning. And then there's a couple of windows along that front facade, or at least the facade that's facing the parking lot. And then as you go around the building, it's your typical prefab building construction, corrugated metal around the sides, and then along the back of it here. And then this is some more images of the back of the building. Pretty much 2 tones of corrugated metal. Inside, the addition is here. You can see those 2 smaller rinks off to the right, or to the west side of the building. The addition's going to wrap around the front of the building just slightly in front of the existing hockey rink that's inside. It's primarily 1 story, but there is a second floor mezzanine that pretty much covers up. You can see on the first floor where we have locker rooms, there's some bathrooms here up front. And there's these center pieces between the rinks. Those are also mirrored to the second floor that you'll see on the next slide. The rink areas are open up to the roof structure.
Is there seating there somewhere that you didn't point at?
There is some seating proposed either on the first floor in here or potentially on the second floor. There's certainly space, or small space around the rinks. There's even some space here at the end of the rink. The interior layout is still a work in progress, but it's meant really for practice and not necessarily for large games, large groups of people sitting in bleachers watching.
But like there would still be parents watching their kids play
Yeah, there's enough
across
room.
ice games, so you're gonna have 4 sets of kids' parents there, right, like
Yeah,
watching.
What we've found is a lot of the parents, when the younger kids that like to get right up on the
Stand
glass
on the
and watch
glass,
them.
stand. All right.
You know, they're right up there, if not inside the bench with them half the time.
On, on the second floor, if you don't mind, go back quick. So this is the addition, this is a small addition up front. Along the front of it is designated for office or flex space. It's really undefined at the moment, but there's a small area here that we're trying to create a space for viewing of the hockey rink. And then we're also looking to connect to the existing second floor of the building, so that way we can utilize the elevator that's in there to provide handicap access to all of the second floor. On the exterior, the top view is the front facade, or again, the north facade facing the parking lot. This is the existing entrance. We're not touching this portion of the building. And then here's the addition. These 2 larger windows are those larger windows looking into that viewing space that we're creating inside, trying to bring some sunlight in through those offices and into that viewing space. A little bit of a ribbon window here on the second floor, just also to bring some light into those auxiliary spaces that I mentioned on the mezzanine. Really, the lower portion of the building is a continuation of materials that are already on the building. This section on the second floor is really the only place where we started to introduce new materials on the building. There is future phase to this project that we've talked about, where this blue area could potentially extend over in front of the rest of the building. The client wants to expand the second floor of that existing space to create a concourse, a walkway for more viewing space looking down into the figure skating rink. As you can kind of see, the grade for where finished floor is, it pops up a little bit, runs along here, which is existing today, and then it starts to slope up as you get to the parking lot. So as you wrap around that corner, which is the second middle elevation, you can see that grade rises up pretty quickly. And then the roof line beyond, this is the existing roof, and you can kind of see it here, this faint line is the edge of the existing roof. It continues to slope down. So really from grade to roof edge here is somewhere around 10 feet or so. So as that building gets closer to the back, closer to the residential zone, as we talked about, that building gets much shallower, much lower in depth. The front, as I mentioned, we did introduce some same materials but just different color, which is along this front facade. But then as we go around the corner, we're returning it back to the same materials that match up with the existing building. So this facade here being the back of the building, you can kind of see this line designates the separation, existing facade and new facade. So we're really just continuing that along the back, along the side, and then transitioning into some new materials at the front.
Could you comment on the facade of the north-facing facade? Doesn't seem to have any pitch, whereas when you look at it from the other end, there's quite a pitch to the
Right, so this area, the first column bay of the addition is a 2-story space, and then directly behind that 2-story space is where the roof slopes. So you can kind of see that slope starting right here, which is the existing slope. We're just continuing that existing slope all the way down to the roof edge. But this front portion is built in front of that slope, so we do have a two-story space, just to give more space in that mezzanine. At that second floor height, as we bring that second floor, if we were to bring the second floor all the way up to here, we'd only have like 6 feet or so that we can get that second floor really on the front of the building. And then where we're in the back here on the second floor, it's really reserved for storage as you get close to that roof edge. We are creating a couple of small awnings, just some awnings colored to match what's existing here. And that's the intent of this color here, is just to match up with the awning color that's on the facade. That's really it, I believe, architecturally.
I think I'd like to get Scott to talk quickly about traffic. And I think we have in the very end, the last couple of sheets in the PowerPoint are a couple of Scott's traffic generation sheets. So if we can flip through to the end, those are the lights. Here, there's another table just before that is trip generation.
That's it. Thank you, Phil. Good evening. For the record, my name is Scott Hesketh. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut, firm of F.A. Hesketh and Associates. Our office is in East Granby, Connecticut, and I'm the author of the June 6th, 2024 Traffic Impact Report, which has been submitted for this application. We were asked to take a look at the potential traffic impacts of this proposed expansion. Typically, when we do that, we research the files of the Connecticut Department of Transportation to get background traffic data on area roadways. We installed a automated traffic volume counter on the ISCC driveway for a 7-day period to measure the current traffic volumes into and out of the site. We also conducted manual turning movement counts during the afternoon and Saturday peak hours at the intersection of Route 10 and 202 and the ISCC driveway. We used all that information to obtain the background traffic volumes for the site. For the record, Route 10 202 has an average daily traffic volume about 11,600 vehicles. Morning peak hour of about 900 vehicles. An afternoon peak hour of 1,140 vehicles. That's based on the CONDOT counts from 2002. The site driveway itself, we observed an average daily traffic volume of about 900 vehicles. Morning peak hour, an afternoon peak hour during the commuter period, about 115 trips, and a late night peak hour of 133 trips. Must have had a hockey game one of those evenings, so slightly higher volumes. On Saturday, we observed a total of 1,400 vehicles into and out of the site, with a peak hour of 333 vehicles during a Saturday evening hockey game, and those counts were conducted during April of 2024. The table you see in front of you is the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation data. It's a standard engineering reference which engineers and planners use to estimate traffic volumes for proposed developments based on traffic volume counts conducted at existing operating facilities throughout the country. We ran the trip generation for most of the existing development, and you see there we've got adjacent street traffic and generator. That's the traffic volumes for the peak hour of the adjacent street, so typically the afternoon commuter peak hour period, and then the generator, peak hour of the generator. Again, if you have a hockey game that starts at 7 o'clock, your peak hour might be 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the evening, but you've got a lot more traffic at that period of time than you do during the commuter times. It's important to know that. Typically, we're not too concerned about that because the background traffic volumes on the roadway are significantly lower, and those events occur maybe 4 or 5 times a month. You can typically get traffic into and out of the facility, maybe with a little bit of wait time, but it should be okay. We also looked at the facility. You see Land Use Code 465 is a skating rink. They present traffic volumes based on the number of rinks provided in the facility and also the square footage of the facility. and you can run the numbers based on different things there. For the proposed development, the ITE does not include data for half rinks. That's a pretty new thing in the industry. So they haven't caught up, because mostly there haven't been enough half rinks existing long enough for people to go out and actually do traffic volume counts, submit the data, have it show up in the tables. So what we did is we talked to the clients, and we said, how are we going to use these things? They said, well, we're going to have skating practices with small teams, 10, 12 kids, 1 or 2 coaches, maybe goaltending practice. Figure skaters may come and use it. They might have a figure skater teacher and 4 or 5 different skaters on a half, thing of ice. Maybe we'll have parties with 15 or 20 kids. So, in looking at that, we projected that we might have potentially maybe 30 users on the facility. So 30 people entering and 30 people exiting would be about 60 trips if they all came by themselves. Pretty conservative. If you have a party, you might bring 2 or 3 or 4 kids, or if you're going to a hockey practice, you might have a carpooling arrangement. So we're projecting that the proposed facility would generate about 60 new trips during the peak hour, both on the weekday and a Saturday. We also ran the numbers based on the total square footage of the expanded development, using the ITE numbers. And again, for purposes of our analysis, we're assuming 60 new trips, which is about 1 trip per minute on average during those peak hours. And that's what we presented in our report. We distributed that traffic to the roadway network. We're assuming that the traffic volumes will enter and exit the same way the existing traffic volumes are. Basically, the existing traffic is entering about 75% from the south and 25% from the north, but they're exiting about 50-50. I'm not quite sure why. They might have something to do with some of that might be big wide traffic where it might be convenient to use that exit for some reason, rather than to go down to the traffic signal the other way. So we distributed this new traffic to the roadway network with that scenario, and then we conducted capacity analysis calculations on the intersection of Site Driveway and Route 10 and 202 to determine how the driveway operates under the background conditions. And then we compare it to how the driveway would operate under the combined traffic volume conditions to determine the potential impact. During the afternoon peak hour, the approaches on Route 10 and 202 were operating at levels of service A during peak hours, meaning if you're a through vehicle, there's no delay whatsoever. If you're northbound looking to make a left-hand turn in, or southbound making a right-hand turn in, very minimal delays. You have level of service A, average delays under 10 seconds per vehicle on those approaches. That's true in the background conditions, as well as the combined traffic volume conditions. And it's also true during the afternoon and the Saturday peak hours. In terms of the site driveway, if you go to the next table, we've got that listed out. The site driveway is the eastbound approach. Why do I have southbound twice? Well, that's a typo on the bottom of the chart. There should be eastbound and westbound at the bottom. The eastbound approach would be the ISCC site driveway. We can see that during the afternoon peak hour, we're at level service E, average delay of about 36 seconds. So if you're exiting, you may have to wait half a minute or so on average to get out of the driveway because of the volume of traffic on Route 10. Under the combined conditions, that'll be about 49 seconds on average, so in addition to about 13 seconds. During the Saturday peak hour, which is the 11 to 1 o'clock time period, you're operating at level service C on the site driveway, and under the combined conditions, level service D, about 27 seconds. There is a commercial driveway across the street. We also counted that during our counts, and because it's there, the 2 driveways interplay with each other. We included that site driveway, which should say westbound instead of southbound. My apologies on that. But that driveway approach similarly operates at level service E during the PM peak, level service C during the Saturday under the background conditions. Under the combined conditions, it's level service E in both hours with delays of 47 and 37 seconds. That driveway is extremely wide. It's probably 5 driveways wide. We assumed that all of the traffic was at one location, coming in and out just opposite of us. We assumed a single lane approach, so it operates with a right hand and a left turn hand approach. And I'm sure if you've been out there and you've watched, people come in and out of there in all kind of weird directions at different angles and at different speeds, and they do it whenever they can. And, well, that's existing conditions, not much I can do about that. But we'll have slightly additional delays on that driveway coming out. I can't do much about how people get into and out of there, but it seems to be operating relatively okay at the moment. So, as Phil had indicated, the skating center is currently operating under an Office of the State Traffic Administration certificate, which means when the development was proposed, we submitted the traffic volume information and the proposed site driveway information to the state. They reviewed it, and they made a determination that it would operate safely and efficiently for the volume of traffic which we anticipated. Because it currently has a certificate and we're expanding it, we have to go back to the state for them to re-review it. We anticipate that they will review it favorably and issue us an administrative decision indicating that no improvements will be required as a result of the increase in traffic. We're waiting on a few signed documents from some town officials so we can make that submission, as the town is the landowner of the property, and also requires that we submit under the landowner, not just the developer. So, if the commission has any specific questions related to traffic, I'll be happy to take them. I know you had one previously, so now's probably a good time.
I did, but that was extremely thorough, so thank you very much for that. I have more of a comment, which I brought up to other developers as well. I don't know if it's a comment or a question. Has anyone worked or questioned the state about bus routes on and accessibility to ISCC and how that works?
I have not had specific conversations with the state, but one of the things that we do have to submit to the state under the OSTA applications is what are the current bus routing in the area. Currently, the state runs a commuter bus line which stops just north of the site at the sand pit. And so we do have busing information. It's more of it's an express route from Granby into the city of Hartford, so they don't make an awful lot of stops. I think that this type of use is not the kind of use where bus usage would be high, except perhaps for employees of the facility itself. If you've got a hockey game, you're probably not lugging your equipment onto the bus and come and go. If you're a figure skater, likely the same thing. You've got bags of things that you need to carry, and
Well, I think we don't know, so this is why I asked the question of other developers as well, is because that's something that I think we need to start thinking about in general.
generally speaking,
Is that bus route?
if the users of a particular facility make known to the bus companies that they have a particular desire to use buses for access, pardon me, I've got the allergies are kicking in. If the users of the facility notify the bus company they have a particular desire and they get enough calls, they tend to review it because they're looking for customers as well. They do review these kinds of things.
So it's incumbent upon the consumer.
It's generally incumbent upon the consumer, because a lot of developers would love to have the service. And the bus company would say, yes, we'd love to have the service as well, but until we see a need, someone has to demonstrate a need. Anytime we have to add stops, anytime we have to add bus routes, it costs us money, it takes time. You might think, oh, it's just a stop, but every time you stop, it's 3 or 4 minutes to the bus route. If I add 10 stops, that's 40 minutes, and that's 6 less buses a day. And so they really like to see that there's a need before they address it. But
Are you guys hooked up to the sidewalk?
there is a sidewalk does come down Route 10. There's no sidewalk on site.
It doesn't hook up to it?
It does not go up along the driveway. And again, pedestrian traffic to the use itself, typically not high. I guess maybe with
Well-
the,
Certainly not, there's no sidewalk.
well, with the exercise facilities,
Yeah.
there might be a need for that, again, not for the main usage of the facilities,
Oh,
but.
yeah. No, it's not your fault, I'm just,
But just
would
to
be one
follow,
thing for access to the
you
bus.
identified the bus stop at the sand pit. Where's the sand pit?
It's the commuter lot, sand pit, just north of, Walcott. It's on the, just
Oh,
next to the pool, Leslie Pool Supplies, and Leslie Pool
Oh.
Supply, or?
you're talking about the state garage?
Yes, the state.
Oh, state
they call it-
maintenance garage.
The state calls it the sand pit.
Wow.
They do store sand there. And the bus originates up in Granby at the Congressional Church on 189, comes down, 189, 10202, stops there.
Got
Has
it.
one or two other stops before it gets to Hartford, but it's an express route.
Okay. Other questions?
This may not be for you, but when do you expect the new rinks to be in peak use? Is it weekdays, weekends?
Well, I'll leave that up to them, but typically, it's evening hours, and weekends. Obviously, a lot of your users are students. School time is typically out, so, you wait till after school's out, and you've got the evening hours. You do have some uses during the daytime, but typically not a lot, so it's night times and weekends.
Okay.
Yeah, generally, you'll see peak hours from 3 o'clock till 8 o'clock with the younger crowds.
Monday through Friday,
Monday through
Okay.
Fridays.
Saturday and Sunday, 7 AM to about 10 PM.
And just the waiting times that are identified on that chart.
Yes, sir.
By definition, those waiting times are satisfactory? Is that a fair statement?
Yes, well, generally speaking, if you're doing a design from scratch, you look for a level of service D. Because generally speaking, you want to design for the peak hour of traffic and have some delay, but not a significant volume. If you try to design for level of service A all the time, you end up with too many lanes, lots of pavement.
Right.
People driving really fast, so you try to make a balance out of that. I did look to see if a signalization would be warranted at the intersection. You can make the warrant say it's warranted, but looking at the level of delays here, unless you had 60 or more seconds of delay on the side street approach, if I put a traffic signal in, you are by definition going to wait 45 seconds on the side street approach. Now, you'll be guaranteed to get out, but you're gonna time it such that the people on the side street.
Well, when I look at it, I see such varying numbers that it makes me kind of wonder what the standard is. When does the person sitting in a car get irritated? When are they feeling like they're not coming back here? This is,
Well,
but it,
we're a little more tolerant up here in the Northeast than we might be in some other parts of the country. But yeah, we were designed to a level of service D and tolerate levels of service E and even some Fs occasionally during peak hours. And that's just the price we pay for living in the Northeast and having popular places to go.
Yeah, I mean, I can't fault this project too much for some of that issue too. I mean, we could be as a town doing more to be connecting people to pedestrians and bikes. I mean, why is it that every kid is coming in, from a high school is being driven there when it's in biking distance? Well, there's not enough connections in the town to necessarily get them there. So you guys not doing the last little 50 feet or whatever is not exactly your fault. You're responding to what is available in the town. So, I mean, a great way to get fewer cars in there would be that not every single kid is being taken by their parent. I know that isn't particularly realistic right now, but that's something we as a town can be doing better, not just this one individual development.
Yeah,
I
what
think
you
you're
see,
right, but-
what you'll run into is you'll run into a lot of parents do carpool.
Yeah.
And they'll throw all the kids. You're not gonna have a kid on a bike with all his equipment.
No, yeah.
Because, the kid weighs 60 pounds and his equipment weighs 150.
Yeah. Do you guys have lockers there for people at all?
There are lockers in some of the locker rooms, yes, but you'll also have locker rooms. So when the kids come in, they bring their bags.
Yeah.
You'll have one kid teetering to one side barely standing
Yeah.
up. Or you'll have another kid wheeling his bag in there, and they have locker rooms, so they'll change in the locker rooms.
Yeah.
Take all their bags, take all their sticks, take everything, and then they go out to the car, sling it into the back with their mom, and
Right.
off they go.
As a parent who drove kids to hockey practice an awful lot, I would have loved to have lockers in the rink
Yeah.
keep the equipment there, so we didn't have to have it at home, but that's not.
Yeah.
The
that's not a thing.
ebb and flow of the cars is not, like, you're rarely now, and you're adding 60 at most cars coming in and out, you're rarely even waiting behind somebody. Like, that would be rare for there to be like 2 or even 3 cars stacked up there now, from my personal experience. Just because the ebb and flow is such that like people are coming in before the games and then like there's like changing and people are changing at different rates, and so it's not like so much a mass exodus either, even after a game. Like, I'm sure at like a high school game where you get a lot of like paid patrons, there's gonna be a little bit more of that, but still it's not,
Well, the majority of the flow is all southbound anyways, because you have parents coming in
yeah.
from south, turning into the rink. When they come out, it's a right-hand turn, so a lot of
Yeah.
people are just flowing right through.
Yeah. Well, it's better
One thing
than-
I should point out too is that, the site driveway itself is wide enough, it has 2 lanes. It has in the past been striped with a stop bar and lane lines and arrows. That's my understanding that, you know, with the recent installation of the sidewalks, that some of that has probably been eradicated. And, but our current OSA approval does require that we have stop signs, stop bar, lane lines, and, the new approval will also have that, so that will be being replaced as part of this application.
That's better than no one coming at all, and then you'd have no wait times if
Yeah,
no one showed up.
just staff has added a condition to that effect on the striping.
That it gets painted, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that pretty much sums it up. We've got Brian from Cole Engineering, who has developed the stormwater plan. If anyone has questions for Brian, Brian can certainly answer them, but I think we've probably taken as much time as you can tolerate, but
No, not quite.
we've explained.
I have a couple more questions, but if Brian's the right person, we'll hear from him. But I'm interested in whether there is well, a couple things. But first, the equipment that the building functions off of to produce ice 24/7, year round, is that possibly a concern of neighbors? I mean, you're not a neighbor, but is there a sound emitting outside of this building, or is this sound contained inside the building?
Well, the current setup, the way it is now, it's a 30-year-old system, so the building and all its ancillary items have been there prior to the crossing going in. And we've talked to some of the residents, and we're in the process of trying to update some of the older systems that are there. And if we have the system in place, and we talked to Mr. Sear about that just prior to this meeting, where we have one of the pieces in the back. We're waiting for the manufacturer to come out and do the installation for us. So they're located out in Minnesota, and they do all the installations throughout the entire country. So we're on the waiting for them to come in. The new system that we're putting in is a glycol system. This is an older system that we have currently, which is an ammonia-based system, and it has all the bells and whistles and the noises of the old components. This newer system is gonna be a lot more energy efficient, a lot more green-based, it produces less noise, et cetera, so.
Do you know
we're
anything
working
about
with
the noise in terms of decibels?
The decibels are well within the means of the limitations, so I think you have to be at 0.76 or 5 or whatever, I don't know what the numbers are, but we've gone out there with a decibel meter, and it's well below the limits. You do hear noises, but they are below the numbers.
Ultimately, that's an issue that could be, that is checked by the building inspector. The word commercial use, the first crossing is residential use, and so we're considered C, and they're, I forget what maybe they're called an R. But during the day and the night, there are different decibel readings between the two, and I believe at the property line at night, you have to maintain a 55 decibel level reading. So that's that's a, a firm number that can be checked. And if you have to mitigate it, you mitigate it. But that's,
So your feeling is, without having measured it, they're 55 or below right now?
we think we meet those numbers.
Yeah, we've gone out there with a meter ourselves.
Right by
I'm just curious, so that the standard you're using is 55?
Yeah, we're very
Okay.
concerned about, being neighborly with the people next door and trying to help them out. They were in a bad situation with the prior people there. But really, again, as it's well noted, the facility was in great disrepair when we came
Right.
into it. And it's taken us a few years to knock everything out and a great deal of money. And so we're systematically going after one thing to the next, and these, the systems that they're talking about, they're next on the list along with this addition to move things along.
I had another question related to some of the material that we had received. There was reference to an issue with some trailers that are being used or have historically been used for storage.
Oh, well, we brought
Behind
those in,
your
that has the ice
What?
rinks in them. Those are the ice rinks.
That will be installed.
And when are they gonna be installed?
As soon as we get approval, and move forward, we can install, we can put the rinks in place. So as soon as we get the okay to go ahead, our next step is to work with getting the design and the drawings out and, start construction as soon as we can and then install everything. So we're hoping if, things go well to push through and have things ready, hopefully by the end of this year.
Who owns those trucks? Do you own those trucks? You don't?
I think the town staff has built into a potential motion a condition that the trailer has to be off the property before a CO is issued.
I'm aware of that, but I'm also interested in who owns those.
Oh,
I just heard that. Thank you. Okay.
I just had one other question. I think it's maybe an architectural question, but, the Zamboni, if there's like a little Zamboni room for the two new rinks,
yes.
is there any, I mean, I understand now, like, there's a retaining wall and the grade is higher, but is there like any interest in trying to like cut that out and like create exterior access for that Zamboni to like service it or anything
It's in
else?
the back, it's in the back area, so the.
You would
rinks-
come through the
rinks are
second
set the
ring
way
and
we
then
have
get
two
it out.
entrances, so
Yeah.
you would come out of the room, go through, and then go out and go out the back door.
But not from like the little room that it's in between, it has like a little room between the rings, but you would
Yes.
just have to go out the back of that, the
Yes, correct.
upper rink or
It
whatever.
has to go through
Yeah.
the southern rink to get out the back door.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
The back door is there.
Yeah.
But it has to go through
Yeah.
that rink to get to its parking space. on
right,
the
cause
inside.
because there's parking and I realize there's like a hill there, but
Yep.
I wasn't sure if it would get stuck in there or something, you know?
No.
If there was a maintenance issue.
No food trucks on it, right?
Well, let me, before we move on to our own discussion about what next, does anybody else have questions or comments for the applicant or the team? Or we're
I
done?
think that this is exciting for the rink, and it has kind of run its course over the last 30 years from being amazing to problematic to like kind of returning even better, I think, than before. So I think it's great to see. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I think it's exciting for them, it's exciting for economic development. I think it's very positive.
It's town property.
Yeah.
What an investment in town-owned stuff.
And it's been like, I have seen firsthand a lot of the efforts that they've put in, bringing in like the CT whale as an example. And I know that like the entire federation reorganized, so unfortunately that didn't take, but like just the idea that there's a community place for people to go and have entertainment in town that's a little bit different than everything else, I think is beneficial economically.
Thank you, Kate. And so, why don't we move on then? If there's generally a feeling of support, then we should take a look at we all received a draft, as is our practice, to move ahead with an affirmative vote in draft form in support of the application. So we have that supplied by staff, and Thank you, George.
So it's unchanged from when I sent it out on Friday.
Okay.
No additions to it, and the
Great.
applicant has been provided with a copy of it as well, and I hadn't heard any particular objections to any of the conditions. Now, most of them are fairly standard conditions if we go down. Conditions that we would normally use, and I'll go through them quick.
Okay.
So we always recommend substantial conformance to the plans that have been submitted. We've made it standard practice to request an erosion and sediment control bond during the construction. We've added recently an issue or a condition that says if there's anything minor technical issues that staff identifies at a future time that we can just manage that. The engineer has a question about one of the inlets or one of the leaders, we can kind of manage that without coming back to the commission. We had standard submission of documents, Mylars, and then as-built at the end. We as was previously mentioned, we did the engineer and the police chief both recommended to restripe the condition at the entrance at Hot Meadow. And we've asked the applicant to also remove those storage trailers prior to occupancy, so that they obviously can be there during the construction process, but they'd be gone by the time the new rink is open. So.
They did mention, Chris mentioned, possibly extending that mezzanine area across, I think, what is the lobby now. That wouldn't change the footprint of the building. You said that might be something as you develop the plans, like for this phase, or that would be another phase? Okay, so they would.
We understood that to be a
Okay, so that's
future
not
phase,
part
and we
of
would
this.
come back for design as
Okay.
appropriate.
Yeah, okay.
Judge, I just want to clarify, the DRB approval was without condition?
So they don't, no, it was without conditions. They recommended approval as the applicant submitted.
Okay,
They had one condition, which is conformance to the plan set.
okay,
So nothing extraordinary.
okay, thanks.
So, do we need a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion to, if there's no changes suggested to this, then we'll go ahead and consider this the motion. But,
Technically, since it's in public and it's shown and we've got a document in front of you, you can technically move the draft motion.
okay,
Which
does
is a
somebody want to
motion to
move the
approve.
draft motion?
Go ahead.
Move to approve application ZC 2417, for 1375 Hot Meadow Street, as written in the draft motion. Do I need to read it, or?
No, I
that's
don't
what
think
you're
you
saying
can
I
just,
don't,
you can
right?
reference
Okay.
the shown draft conditions.
As shown.
I will second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this application? Hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
And those opposed, say nay. Well, the application is approved then as submitted with the changes and conditions. Thank you, you're all set.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing some building down there before long.
Look forward to seeing you guys in the fall.
Yeah, that's right.
Learn to state registration.
Okay.
See you guys out
Don't
there.
have
Don't
to.
sign up.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. I can't believe when I saw that sheet was here. I had one of those when I sat down. Oh, well, anyway. Then, of course, when I go to look for it and get the application number, I'm realizing the application number's not on this thing. That doesn't happen very often. Well, anyway. Okay. Okay, if we're ready to move on. Our next item is going to be some further conversation about prioritization of objectives. And George, if you'd like to plunge in with the document that you sent us, which was very, I think, complete in a lot of ways, but.
Okay, so after we left our last meeting, what we tried to do was to try and break the prioritization exercise that you participated in really into 3 different blocks of priorities, or 3 different categories, really based on the numeric evidence and the numeric votes, if you will. So, without characterization, high priority, medium priority, lower priority. It doesn't mean that, it means that all of them are priorities, but we can't do them all. And so you tried to select what was most important to this particular group. And, by and large, by category, the highest priority was clearly an approach to develop a toolkit for housing opportunity. I think that's the best way to say it. If you look at the items that you prioritize with the highest number, and it's on the screen, so they're all related to identifying a zoning district that allows for multifamily across the spectrum, or adopting a zoning regulation to require the affordable unit set aside. Consider allowing a zoning district that might allow some smaller lots than we have today. And allowing potentially 2-family homes to be permitted by right in ultimately I would recommend your lower density zones, or your higher density zones where where you allow some density. So the high priority items jumped out, and I think that was pretty clear. I will note that that Commissioner Batos has not registered her votes yet, so I think she's been out of town and traveling, so she hasn't. And again, you certainly have consensus of the 8 or the 7 here, so her votes, will certainly add to that. But I did want to let you know that I don't have those yet. So then you kind of jump down to the medium priorities. There's a whole bunch that got 4 votes, and then some that were clearly kind of at a lower priority or lower interest. So I'm not going to go over each one. I think you guys know each and every one of these. So what I did with the memorandum was to kind of lay out how staff could do this over the next couple of months. And in fact, are these the kind of things that you want us to work on? I think you prioritize them, so I don't know if you want to get a little deeper into what they actually are and what they might be, or we just do a little bit of the work and come back with options for you. I think that may be the better thing to do. And so, we essentially, what we are saying is that we could probably attack all 4 of these items for you to begin work on in September. I think I said we could do, if we just chose one, a simple zoning requirement that added 2-family units to the R15 district, we could do that by July. But what I was thinking is that it might be better to kind of offer you the slate of toolkit options for work at your first September meeting. That way we'd have them all done with an explainer, zoning, regulation options, strike-throughs, all those kinds of things, and you can kind of take them as a balance and look at them together. But I'm happy to talk about any of these in any way you want to do tonight. But that's really ultimately what we thought about, talking to Brittany and talking to Joe. And it's going to be August. We're going to be able to put pen to paper. We are busy, but not extraordinarily. Late July and August can become a little quieter. So particularly because we don't have meetings that we're prepping for. So we would be able to do those kinds of things. We looked at the workforce housing overlay zone. I think that can be worked on by you to really accomplish some of the things we're trying to do. And there may be some crossover, but I think it'll be your job to kind of to figure out what the crossover is and what we need and what we don't.
George, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Staff made some recommendations of different things that I'm not sure looking at it, but was there anything you guys were disappointed that did not get higher attention that you think we're maybe overlooking?
No, we are not disappointed. That's a good question.
Thank
the things that we identified were more personal conveniences to us that we're annoyed by in the regulations, that it would help our lives if we fixed a little bit. That is not to say we can't do those things kind of on our own and bring them to you and say, listen, we really think we should fix this particular thing. But I really was trying to coalesce what your priorities were, and yes, we deprioritize staff's positions a little bit, but this is what you cared about, and so that's why we brought this to you.
I thought that your suggestion moments ago about working on these and having something ready to look at all together in September, I'm fine with that. And I think you know your capabilities and your availability of time and energy, and I'm okay with it. But when I started reading, to refresh my memory on the workforce housing overlay zone, the complexity that's buried in there is just, there's a lot. And so if it's a tweaking here and there, that's one thing, but if we're gonna try to do something major with the workforce housing, I don't think you're leaving yourself enough time.
I think the complexity is overdone, quite frankly. I don't think it needs to be that complex.
We only have one application under that. I don't know when this thing was added to the regulations.
It was some time ago, a long time ago, like 20 years ago.
A near bankrupt project up there on Hoskins Road.
Yep,
And that's,
right.
all these
Yeah,
years.
so I think there are some tweaks to that can make it more attractive. One, I don't think we should call it a workforce housing zone. I mean, we're looking for housing opportunity for our entire population. It should be more inclusive, and I mean, we're all in the workforce. So I mean, so there are a number of little.
I'm surprised to see the priority and the preference given in that regulation to town employees and members of the police department. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I'm surprised to see that.
Yeah,
I
so
should be more familiar with our regulations.
So we'll work through it and kind of give you our reasons, and I think we'll provide almost a full draft as to kind of how we got here and what we think the fixes are. That is a tool, I think, that can be used to solve a number of the things you've identified. That particular tool on its own. It's a tool that allows for townhouses. It's a tool that allows for attached units. Nobody's ever used it. One of the reasons is there's a requirement that it's got to be within 700 feet of Hot Meadow Street, and there's a host of other kind of, I think, unnecessary or burdensome, market barriers that are built in for some reason.
Well, that was part of my question. There haven't been a number of people coming to the town hall interested in doing something with the workforce housing who said, no, it's too complicated, or no, I don't know why they might not. It seems like something, because we rarely talk about it, something that there's been market interest in. And I say the same thing, it's not in this section, but on the form-based code for the center of town, that hasn't drawn a lot of, development enthusiasm over the 10 years since it was adopted. So, I think as we go forward, giving some thought and some weight to what we have and what we've been through, where there is some feedback from the market that we should consider. Factor that into your.
Yeah, we would agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
So that's kind of where we came down. Tony? Looks like you had a question.
I agree with what Bruce was saying about getting something on paper and then working with it, editing it, discussing it.
Yeah. And you'll begin to hear from members of the community. There'll be a lot of input and feedback that you're going to get, and pushback and support, and you'll kind of get all that stuff.
Okay. And then, of course, I can't resist mentioning, but, one of the low priority, in the category of lower priority, I think was the issue of publicizing actions consistent across the different.
Yeah, the public notice requirement for public hearings.
Right. Was that just for public hearings? Well, anyway. 'Cause I was thinking about our-
It really is designed for that. I mean, it's very few places notify adjacent property owners for administrative site plan review. Because, I mean, if you're not having a public hearing, the notification can be confusing if you're going to notify them and then say, no, you can't give us your feedback. Again, the point of the site plan process is, for you guys, does it meet our site plan regulations? And if it does, you're really obligated to approve, unless there are outstanding issues that can't be mitigated. So you'd be careful about when we do public notice that it's want to meet state statute,
Oh,
but
I
it's
know
it's not a driver or a barrier to conflict with our ordinance or our regulations.
Yeah.
But somebody, theoretically though, like a budding property owner could say, there's this unknown thing, they could send a note, theoretically. And it probably would
could.
have no bearing on the decision that gets made, but
Right.
theoretically, they could alert
You could.
us to some
Yeah.
issue that they're having or would be having. as a
So
result.
Brittany's already done work on the notice, and I think we've got a memo already done. So we could also bring that to you, because I do think it's important. I don't think we provide the proper amount of notice that's necessary in a kind of modern, transparent government, particularly for public hearing items.
I agree, that breeds, distrust
Yeah.
amongst the residents. And
Yeah.
it's
So we
generally
could
not our
we could also bring that to you as one of staff's little items that we think is important.
Yeah, feel free.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd be reluctant to change the rating on it, but in that it's,
Right.
the solution may be near at hand.
Yes.
We might want to take that up too. Okay. Did you want more feedback or direction on this?
I don't think so. I think I think we just need to do some work for you, and then we can get, we can have to figure out whether the work we've done is addressing, the will and purpose and intent of the body, and we certainly can
Well, I
go in
think
whatever
I'm on the
direction.
right track, and if any of my colleagues want to add to that or
No,
whatever,
we appreciate the efforts, really.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's off to a good start.
let's keep on going. Thank you. And the last item on our agenda tonight is for the planning director to make a report and some.
Yeah, so I'd like to have that on your agendas, just in case there's something to report to everybody. Brittany, you want to tell everybody about the invasive species tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow night, Marjorie Winters, the Chair of Conservation Commission, is doing a presentation on invasive species, the more prevalent ones you see in town and how to mitigate them. So it'll also be recorded and posted on SCTV. If you can't make it.
What do we have mostly?
Japanese knotweed and
Oriental bittersweet.
Oriental
Asiatic bittersweet.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
But there's about, I think she'll go over 10 of the most major.
And I think sometimes when she talks about this, it does fall, but sometimes it overlaps with our interest with native plants and
Yeah.
the lack that we don't have a landscaping requirement. Anytime we get landscaping, it's negotiated. We literally don't have a landscaping requirement.
So I have a question. That landscaping makes me think, if we had a property that was recently built and they promised big tall arborvitaes and they've planted some and 50 to 75% are dead or do we have any recourse to be
We
like,
absolutely do.
yeah,
That's
fix that?
it's a violation of the site plan.
Yeah.
The site plan has got to be constructed
Because
to
that's
what
like a
you've
pet peeve of
approved.
mine.
And so if we have dead trees, and we know about it, we typically alert the developer or property owner that this is what your site plan, and you've got to replant these trees. You got to
Well-
replace them. We do that.
Before I say any more, I will go and check again and see if things have changed, but
Send us a note.
there is one that's
Yeah.
particularly irksome.
But yeah, it's no different than not putting the sidewalk in or not putting the paving in. It's if the trees die, you've got to replace them.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's all. That was the only thing I wanted to make sure we reported tonight. The invasive species speech.
We're not, the meeting's still going, but this is a little off track, but my questions were about the noise with our application for the skating center, it reminded me of the situation where we didn't ask the tenants at what used to be the building that was the light company down on the Avon Town line there. It's a marijuana business now, but apparently it's fairly widely known that the marijuana business will generate odors at a certain time. And we had it come up at another meeting on another topic that an attorney representing the owners or the occupants of the Aspen Green apartment complex came to, make known their concerns and growing concerns about that. So I was thinking that maybe we'll have to think more about sort of the environmental issues with some of the applications that come across that we wouldn't ordinarily. And, even there, the point made that they have this idea of 55 decibels is what they're trying to contain their noise at, but they didn't really seem to know exactly where they were, but that's all right. That isn't what they were here for. The thing is that we created a regulation here about 3 years ago, and maybe it was 4 years ago, because we put into it a decibel level for something, and we put in 75 decibels because our former chairman told us that's what they used at the Performing Arts Center when they were creating some regulation in response to noise leaking outside the borders of the Performing Arts Center, and neighbors complaining. More in the early stages of that business, but, if and the 75 decibels, he didn't, and I'm not picking on Dave, but there wasn't any basis shared with us how they came up with 75 decibels at the Performing Arts Center. But now it's part of one of our regulations too.
As one of your
55.
regulations or a condition on an application, because we don't have noise regulations.
No, it's not a noise regulation, it's a standard for that one.
It's a standard for that
application.
use, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when we talk about, we don't have noise standards in our zoning ordinance. So we don't have a decibel maximum
Yeah.
for a property when it adjoins another property. We do not.
Should we?
In Wikipedia research here says 55 decibels is generally considered safe. Extended exposure to levels above that can start to be disturbing. So, I mean, maxing out at 55 seems to be like a standard that's been
Well,
done. I wonder how many places already break that, though. I mean, 55 is it's just here in a conversation right now. So, I mean, if you live next to a road, you have a higher than that all the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Airplanes.
it's something to
Airplanes.
sort of-
Example by the airport.
Yeah.
But it's not
Roosters,
constant.
crows, cows.
Well, maybe we leave that one for when we look at the zoning regulations and
Yeah.
our codes and the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But, what I was told, and it's true, anybody with a smartphone can download a decibel meter.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And you can measure your own decibels.
Yes, you can.
But then there's a question of how accurate is it? Well,
Right.
I don't know how accurate, but you can get readings. And give you
Whatever the
plenty of
machinery is
conversation.
reading out at, then it's gonna hit the arborvitae, it's gonna hit the fence, it's, so not all of it is
Oh, yeah,
getting to
yeah,
that
yeah.
border
Yeah,
of
and
the
that,
house.
again,
And
that doesn't exist
particular
today,
But you
so
only-
the fence and the
Yeah.
plant
It's
landscaping.
gonna help, I think.
Certainly.
Should certainly help. And
Yeah.
the one, I didn't say this during that particular item, but I didn't think it particularly necessary, but, one of the issues is that, because of the difficulties at Cambridge Crossing, because of ownership and the former builder, they had landscaping requirements that they have not fulfilled in their entirety, including in this area, and they had perimeter landscaping, and it hasn't all been installed. So we'll be working with the next and future owner to make sure the landscaping does get installed. So I'm just adding
It's
that,
nice of
So
the
that-
to
I was just
put
gonna
it-
say, they might
yeah.
be appreciate
really,
that
it
the
should
rate
be,
is putting that
really
in.
should be,
Yeah.
there should be a partnership there.
But it
These
should
guys
be
should do
both
theirs.
sides,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yep.
Good to know.
Yeah, again, the ice rink was there for
Before.
30 years before the Cambridge Crossing came.
Yeah, right.
30 years,
20
20
something.
years, 20 years.
Right.
1994 to 2015. 20.
21.
I feel like moving in next to Ensign Bigford and being like, where are those explosions? I don't like
Oh,
it.
yeah, like Phil by the
Make 'em
gun
stop.
range.
They only started doing
Yeah,
it
by
in
the fire.
1800s. You know, it's 150 years they've been blasting stuff.
Yeah,
Every
right.
4 o'clock every afternoon, whatever it was. Yeah, it's not as much anymore because they sold the blasting business to, yeah. So anyway.
Okay, so we'll get to work on that stuff, and we'll.
Okay.
we'll-
Did anybody have anything else they wanted to bring up? Then we'll consider a motion to adjourn at 8:36. That's what my watch says. So
Second.
that's a motion and a second. And all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. And so we're adjourned, 8:36. Thank you.